Okay. Well, it's been a couple days since I last was working on woodworking, and I finished up the retro computing workbench, which I'll show you that real quick. So you can see, yeah, over here is how it kind of ended up going. I put I put all the bracing in, which I had showed I think before, and then painted everything black. I built a little shelf here for this one particular Macintosh that was just the CPU and the drives. So the case chassis was a little too deep, as was the monitor, to fit on the bench, and so I built this little shelf so that the keyboard and mouse could sit underneath it. Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is going to remain the retro computing workbench area that I kind of thought it was going to be. It may end up becoming sort of that more just generic crafting area, depending on how things go here, in terms of what material I have and the size of the table I end up building. I may end up moving a lot of the crafting supplies from the other side of the basement over here, kind of on those benches, and use those kind of as storage for the crafting materials, and then have a big build and display table over here in the middle where I've got lots of space. And then all those retro computers will get moved over to another workbench that I've got on the other side of the basement. So I kind of have to just see space-wise and material-wise how much I've got. So today what I'm going to do is start working on building out that big crafting table. So I've got to kind of evaluate the materials here, and then I'm going to get to building it. Again, a pretty straightforward build. It's just building the table with kind of some bracing and a kind of a reinforced top so it can support a lot of weight for the things that I want to do the crafting on. So yeah, I'm going to get to it. I'm not going to narrate too much, and then that'll be it for this video. Thanks. Forward 34 and a half. Okay, so This is that next project I'm working on, and didn't record a lot of it yesterday when I started building the table out. Mostly because you probably hear behind me the heater's going. It's a really cold day out, and I'm not even sure if you're going to be able to get any of what I'm saying, the audio, over the sound of the heater. So that's why I haven't been narrating much. But I'm going to go ahead and show what I've got so far. Hopefully you can hear some of this. So I'm building this table now as it's going to be a crafting table. So for larger projects. I'm a big fan of constructing Lego, and some of the larger things that I like to work on are things like castles and castle projects. Very often, even though they're built in segments, when they're put together they have a very large footprint and they are extremely heavy. So I need something that is pretty large and can handle that kind of weight. So what I'm building here, again, this is just trying to burn off the remaining scrap pieces of lumber that I have, and I'm getting through most of it here. This table, hopefully you can get a kind of a sense of the perspective of it. It's about 6 foot long by 3 foot wide by 2 foot tall. So it's a short table, but that's okay because, again, I'm going to be sitting on chairs here mostly, and chairs and kind of wheeling it around as I'm working on pieces. So it's not a problem that it doesn't sit that high off the ground. So 6 foot by 3 foot gives me 18 square foot of building space, which is big enough that I can have basically one kind of largish project that I'm working on at a time. As you can see, I was running very low on scrap lumber. So for example, I didn't have any more 6 foot pieces of 1x material. So I ended up taking like sets of 1, 2, 3 pieces of 2 foot by 1 inch by 4 inch lumber, and then sistering them together with these little like bridge pieces, I guess you'd say here, little like 6 inch, 8 inch bridge pieces. And I did that on both sides here to basically make 2 virtual 6 foot pieces of lumber. And then I had these 3 foot pieces of 1x4 left over from another project, 2 of them. So that just ended up kind of defining the dimensions of the table. So it's 3 foot by 6 foot. And again, the legs that are 2 foot tall, those came off of other tables that we had. We had a model train table, a big O-gauge train table set up a few years ago, and these are extra pieces from that. I had 5 legs total, but I wanted to have some support in the middle just because this is such a long span. And so I ended up taking 2 shorter pieces, 1 foot pieces of 2x4, and sistering them together to make the 6th leg. And so far it looks, it's hard to see, but it looks pretty stable. It's pretty level and pretty stable, generally speaking. And so now that I've got these cross members here, they're like 2 inch by 1 inch cross members that I cut down to whatever the interior dimension was, I think 34.5, 4 of them. So basically creating 5 small sections that are each about 14, 15 inches or so in width. And then the reason I did that is because over here I've got all my remaining scrap plywood, and I'm basically just going to sort of piecemeal it together like jigsaw puzzle, Tetris style, until I get the whole top covered. I'm not really worried about it being one big consistent piece. I'm more interested in just burning through excess scrap material that I've got laying around, because I didn't really want to buy new material until I burned through the scrap material. And so I'm trying to just use up as many of those pieces. Again, it's hard to see here, but I moved them all to the bottom of my workbench there. Try to use as many of those scrap pieces as I can to form a complete top here. And I don't care how jigsaw-y it is. I'll just connect it underneath with bridge pieces to kind of make it, virtually a single piece. And then when it's all said and done, I'll paint the thing. I might put trim around the edges just because I've got a whole bunch of trim pieces, and I'm not sure what needs trim, what it's going to look like. I might put trim pieces right around the edge just because I'll have like an unfinished plywood edge here, on the sides all the way around, because it's going to sit right on top of the frame. and so I may put trim all the way around to just kind of make it look more finished. And then paint it. I might do a two-tone thing with the legs black at the and the frame black, and then do the top in gray. Excuse me, or I may do the whole thing in gray to match like that door, for example, which is what all the trim in the basement, in our basement, is now. This door over here, all gray. So it probably either gray or black, and that's basically going to be the rest of the project. So I will put this back on here, and whoops. So that's pretty much the rest of what I'm going to do here. And again, I won't narrate too much more. But then hopefully when I piece this all together, you get a sense kind of the completion of the project, the finishing of the project, of what's going to be this big sort of Lego build table. Okay. Okay. Back again here, and I'm working on the top of the table now. I've got basically the frames all built with some cross bracing in, and I'm taking pieces of 1/2-inch plywood that were just scraps left over from old projects that have been since disassembled. So I'm just repurposing old scrap wood here. And what I'm having to do is to kind of cut down different pieces of plywood, kind of to treat it like a jigsaw puzzle, basically, and put all the pieces together. So I've got two pretty large pieces that I think are going to marry up pretty well. I've already had to cut extra sections off them to make them fit, but between the two of them, they cover probably 2/3 or 3/4 of the tabletop, so that'll be great. And I've got little pieces that I'm going to kind of fill in the other gaps for, and if necessary, I'll put cross bracing between the cross bracing to give support to those pieces, so I can tack them down on multiple sides to make them so that they don't flex, basically keep the whole thing rigid. So at this point, what I need to do before I do any more cutting is to just tack down the pieces that I have, basically so that I can get good like precise, have some stability in the existing pieces so that I can get more precise measurements for the cuts that are needed on the remaining pieces. If I try to do too many pieces before I've tacked it all down, it's possible that things will slide off by a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch, and then all of a sudden I'll make a cut that's wrong, off by a certain amount, and if it's too little, that's okay, because I can always cut more. But if I accidentally cut too much, I can end up wasting scrap pieces, which I don't want to do. So again, I've got enough now. I'm going to tack these down, and then I'm going to get back to cutting the remaining scrap up and filling in the pieces. This one's just about on the edge of a cross piece. So enough of it is overhanging the cross piece that it's resting on it, but it wants to flex upward, so it needs to be tacked down, but there's not enough of the cross piece to attach to without having to go on an angle, which I don't really want to do. I don't want to create a weird gap by trying to do the equivalent of a pocket hole for a screw. So I'm going to wait, and then I'll put a cross bracing piece in that I can use to attach this to tie it down afterwards. This one's kind of in the same boat where It's just right about at the edge of where one of the cross bracing pieces is. So again, I'll attach it on two sides, and then I'll have another cross bracing member underneath this seam, so I can attach both sides of it to stabilize these two pieces, the edge between these two pieces. Actually, before I attach this, I want to trim this down, so I'm going to draw a line underneath to where it needs to be cut, and then cut it real quick. Just as I was making that cut there, I looked down after the cut was done, and all of a sudden a little nut had fallen off my feet, and I thought, uh-oh, what fell off my chop saw? It was actually the bolts that are used to hold the chop saw to the cart here, the mobile cart, are very short, and so the vibrations cause them from time to time, cause the nuts and bolts to loosen up, and eventually the nut will just fall off. So when that happens, I just have to reach back underneath here and reconnect it. Yeah. Oh well, no biggie. Okay, so that's kind of that side, all pieced together. That's basically done from the top standpoint. And of course, I have to put a little bracing underneath it to shore up all the edges of all the pieces, so to reduce flex. But generally, I think that's going to be okay. Now I've just got this other side to contend with. That's the last little bit, so let's get to it. Alright, so got to running low on battery life here, but hopefully enough to show you here. So I still need to add those bracing pieces underneath, cross bracing pieces, so that I can attach all of this kind of stuff to it, which right now it's flexing because it's not, a lot of it's not attached to anything. Pretty much under the seams here, you can see that it's going to have to be bracing all along here where it's flexing. And then once those cross brace pieces are in, you know, attach the edges of the top pieces to them, just kind of to secure everything in place. But generally, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard to get perspective on it now, but you can kind of sort of start to see a little bit of what it's going to look like there. Obviously it'll all be painted some consistent color or colors, probably, like I said, black legs and frame maybe, and then gray on top. And I might put trim pieces around the edge here to hide these, or hide all the cuts of the plywood edges. But you know what? Overall, I think it's going to be great. It's pretty utilitarian, but it's a good size, 3 foot by 6 foot, so it'll give me plenty of space to build larger models. Anyway, this may be the last video, or I may do one more as I get the last little pieces of bracing in place, and then get the last little pieces of bracing in place, and then paint it. But so that'll be it, and then I'll post this whole thing up to YouTube. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.